The conference room felt suffocating as Maya Bennett stared at the job offer letter in her hands, the Seattle skyline visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the downtown Boston office, where she had spent the last 3 years building her career as an environmental architect. She had exactly 48 hours to decide whether to accept the position that would take her 3,000 miles away from everything she knew, including the man sitting across from her at his mahogany desk, pretending to review blueprints while his jaw tightened with each passing second. Ethan Cole had been unusually quiet all morning, and Maya knew why. Her phone call with the Seattle firm yesterday had been loud enough for him to overhear through his office door. Now, as she gathered her courage to tell him officially, she watched his fingers grip his pen with enough force to turn his knuckles white. "I need to talk to you about something," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. Ethan looked up, his gray eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in the architecture firm's history, having built Cole Environmental Design from a small startup into a multi-million-dollar company in just 8 years. His success had made him a millionaire several times over, but Maya had never cared about that. What drew her to him was the passion he brought to every project, the way his entire face lit up when discussing sustainable building practices, and how he remembered everyone's coffee order despite managing a staff of 60. "Seattle called with a formal offer," she continued, setting the letter on his desk. "They want me to lead their new green infrastructure division. It's everything I have been working toward." The pen in Ethan's hand snapped. The sharp crack echoed through the office, and they both stared at the broken pieces for a moment before he carefully set them aside. When he looked at her again, his expression was carefully neutral, the mask he wore during difficult client negotiations. "Congratulations," he said, his voice flat. "When do they need an answer?" "Day after tomorrow. They want me to start in 3 weeks if I accept." 3 weeks. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them had ever voiced aloud. Maya had joined Cole Environmental Design fresh out of graduate school, drawn by the company's innovative approach to sustainable architecture. Ethan had interviewed her himself, and she had spent the entire hour arguing with him about water reclamation systems, both of them getting so animated that his assistant had poked her head in to make sure everything was okay. He had hired her on the spot. For 3 years, they had worked side by side. Late nights reviewing proposals, early mornings visiting construction sites, heated debates about design elements that ended with both of them grinning, energized by the challenge of pushing each other's ideas further. Office parties where they always seemed to end up on the balcony together, talking about everything except work. The time she had brought him soup when he was sick, letting herself into his apartment with the spare key he had given her for emergencies. The time he had shown up at her door at 2 in the morning because she had texted him a sad emoji after a bad phone call with her mother, and he had brought ice cream and terrible action movies. They had never crossed the line. Ethan was her boss, and Maya valued her professional reputation too much to risk it. But the line had grown increasingly blurry, and they both knew it. "This is a big opportunity," Ethan said, standing and walking to the window. His broad shoulders were tense beneath his tailored shirt, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Seattle is lucky to get you." Maya stood as well, moving to join him at the window. The April afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city below, and she could see the harbor in the distance, the same view she had admired countless times from this very spot. "Say something real," she said quietly. "Please." Ethan's reflection in the glass showed a man at war with himself. His jaw worked as if he was physically restraining words that wanted to escape. Finally, he turned to face her directly, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her heart stutter. "What do you want me to say, Maya?" "That I think you should turn down your dream job, because I can't imagine coming to work every day and not seeing you. That I have been in love with you since you told me my water reclamation design was adequate at best during your interview. That the thought of you being 3,000 miles away makes me want to put my fist through this window." The confession crashed over her like a wave. Maya's lips parted in shock, her mind racing to process what he had just admitted. 3 years. 3 years of carefully maintained professionalism, of swallowing feelings and keeping appropriate distance. And now, when she was about to leave, he chose to tell her. "You are in love with me," she whispered. Ethan laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "God, Maya, how could you not know?" "Everyone in this office knows. I am pretty sure the cleaning crew knows. You are the first person I think about in the morning and the last person I think about at night. You make every project better, every day brighter. I gave you lead on the Riverside development because I knew you would do something brilliant with it. And you did. I raised your salary twice in 2 years because you deserve it, and because I was terrified some other firm would poach you. Which is exactly what is happening now." "Ethan, but I am not going to ask you to stay," he continued, his voice rough. "This opportunity is exactly what you deserve. Seattle needs someone with your vision, and you need room to grow beyond what I can offer you here. I won't be the reason you give up your dreams. I care about you too much for that." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. For 3 years, she had harbored feelings for Ethan that she had convinced herself were one-sided. She had dated other people, trying to move on. There had been David, the lawyer who took her to nice restaurants but never understood why she got excited about permeable pavement. And Marcus, the teacher who was sweet but bored her with his lack of ambition. None of them had been Ethan, with his sharp mind and devastating smile and the way he looked at her like she had hung the moon. "I didn't know," she said. "I thought you only saw me as an employee, a friend maybe, but nothing more. I was your boss. I couldn't risk making you uncomfortable or putting your career in jeopardy. But now you are leaving anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter anymore." The resignation in his voice broke something in her. Maya took a step closer, close enough to see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes, close enough to catch the scent of his cologne mixed with the coffee he had been drinking all morning. "It matters," she said firmly. "It matters because I have been in love with you too. Since you hired me, even though I was fresh out of school with more student debt than experience. Since you stayed up until 3 in the morning helping me prepare my presentation for the Sustainability Summit. Since you remembered my birthday last year and got me that rare book on Victorian garden design that I had mentioned once in passing." Ethan's eyes widened. "Then why are you leaving?" "Because you never said anything. Because I thought this was all in my head. Because Seattle offered me the position 3 weeks ago. And I have been agonizing over it ever since, trying to figure out if staying in Boston was about my career, or about hoping something might happen between us that seemed impossible." They stood inches apart, years of unspoken feelings finally out in the open. Ethan raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her cheek. His palm was warm, his touch gentle despite the calluses from the woodworking hobby he pursued on weekends. "I am an idiot," he murmured. "A brilliant idiot," she agreed, her lips curving into a smile even as tears spilled down her cheeks. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and achingly tender. Maya's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as 3 years of longing poured into that single moment. He tasted like coffee and mint, and the sound he made when she deepened the kiss sent warmth flooding through her entire body. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan pressed his forehead to hers. "I still can't ask you to stay," he said, "as much as I want to." Maya's heart sank even as she understood his reasoning. The job in Seattle was everything she had been working toward. More responsibility, a bigger platform for her ideas, a substantial salary increase that would finally let her pay off her student loans. It was the smart choice, the practical choice, but walking away from Ethan, now that she knew he felt the same way, felt like tearing herself in half. "I need to think," she said. "This changes everything. Take your time. Whatever you decide, I will support you." He kissed her forehead. "But Maya, if you do go to Seattle, I need you to know that this, right here, isn't just me panicking about losing you as an employee. I have wanted to kiss you for 3 years. I have imagined a future with you. And if you move across the country, I am not going to be able to just move on and pretend this didn't happen." The weight of his words settled over her. This wasn't a confession born of desperation or fear of change. This was real, and it was terrifying, and it was everything she had secretly wanted. "Can I have until tomorrow morning?" she asked. "You can have as long as you need." Maya nodded and reluctantly stepped back, immediately missing his warmth. She grabbed her phone and bag, moving toward the door on unsteady legs. Before she left, she turned back to look at him. Ethan stood by the window, hands in his pockets again, watching her with an expression that held so much love and sadness it made her chest ache. "For the record," she said, "you have had terrible timing." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I know. I am working on it." Maya left the office in a daze, barely registering the curious looks from her coworkers as she headed for the elevator. Her best friend and cubicle mate, Rachel, caught up with her just as the doors opened. "Everything okay? You look like you have seen a ghost," Rachel said, her dark eyes concerned. "I just need some air. I will text you later." She escaped before Rachel could probe further, knowing her friend would immediately see through any attempt at deception. The cool April breeze hit her face as she exited the building, and she started walking without any destination in mind, needing movement to process the whirlwind of the last 30 minutes. Ethan loved her. The thought kept circling through her mind, impossible and wonderful and utterly complicated. He loved her, and she loved him, and now she had to decide between her dream job and the possibility of a relationship with the man who had occupied her thoughts for 3 years. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Did you tell them about Seattle yet?" Maya had confided in her parents about the job offer 2 weeks ago. Her mother, ever practical, had been thrilled. Her father, a romantic at heart, had asked if there was anyone special keeping her in Boston. Maya had said no, believing it to be true at the time. She typed back, "Told my boss. It's complicated, call you tonight." Another text came through, this one from Rachel. "Ethan just locked himself in his office and canceled his afternoon meetings." What happened? Maya ignored it, not ready to explain. She found herself at the public garden, the spring flowers just beginning to bloom. She sat on a bench near the pond, watching the swan boats glide by, and tried to think logically about her situation. On paper, the choice was clear. Seattle offered career advancement, higher pay, and the chance to lead projects from the ground up. Coal environmental design was established, but Maya would always be working in Ethan's shadow, no matter how much he valued her contributions. Taking the Seattle job was the smart, mature decision. But life wasn't lived on paper. Life was Ethan's laugh when she made a terrible pun during site visits. It was the way he always saved her a seat at company meetings, the right side, because he knew she was left-handed and they could share notes without bumping elbows. It was 3 years of connection and chemistry, and a foundation of friendship that most relationships would kill to have. Could she really walk away from that for a job? Her phone rang. Maya looked down to see Ethan's name on the screen, her heart leaping. She answered immediately. "Hey," she said. "I know I said I would give you space to think," Ethan said, "but I realized I didn't ask the most important question." "What question?" "Do you want to stay in Boston? Forget about me, forget about the job. If you could design your perfect life right now, where would it be?" Maya closed her eyes, considering the question seriously. Boston had been home for 6 years since she arrived for graduate school. She loved the city's history, the changing seasons, the harbor at sunset. Her parents were a 2-hour drive away in Connecticut. Rachel and a handful of other close friends were here. She had built a life, but she had also always imagined herself ending up on the West Coast eventually, drawn by the progressive environmental policies and the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest. Seattle had been on her radar since college, representing the pinnacle of green architecture and sustainable urban planning. "I don't know," she admitted. "I love Boston, but I have also always been curious about Seattle. I think either place could be home if the right circumstances were there." "That is what I thought," Ethan said quietly. "Look, I am not calling to pressure you. I just wanted you to know that whatever you decide, I meant what I said. I love you, Maya, and if you go to Seattle, I will find a way to make it work. I will visit, you can visit here, we will figure it out. I am not going to let 3,000 miles stand in the way of giving us a real shot." Warmth flooded through her. "You would do long distance. I would do whatever it takes. You are worth it." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes again. "I hate that you are saying all the right things." "Why?" "Because it makes this decision so much harder." She laughed wetly. "If you were terrible at this, I could just go to Seattle with a clear conscience." "Sorry to complicate your life," he said, but she could hear the smile in his voice. "Think about it. Talk to your parents, talk to Rachel, talk to whoever you need to. Just know that I am all in, whatever you choose." After they hung up, Maya sat on the bench for another hour, turning the problem over in her mind from every angle. Finally, she pulled out her phone and called her father. "Maya, sweetheart," he answered warmly. "How is my favorite architect?" Confused, she said. "Dad, how did you know Mom was the one?" Her father chuckled. "That is a big question for a Thursday afternoon. What brought this on? Just answer, please." "All right. I knew your mother was the one because she made every day better. Not perfect, mind you. We argued plenty, especially in those early years. But even on the hard days, even when we disagreed, I never once thought about walking away. She was my partner, my best friend, and the person I wanted to share every victory and defeat with." "Why do you ask?" Maya swallowed hard. "Ethan told me he is in love with me today, after I told him about the Seattle offer." Silence on the other end then. "The boss you have been half in love with for 3 years. I was not half in love with him. Was I that obvious? To everyone except him, apparently. What did you say? That I love him too? But Dad, the Seattle job is incredible. It is exactly what I have been working for. How do I choose between career and love?" Her father was quiet for a moment. "You know, when your mother and I got married, she had a job offer in Chicago. Better pay, more prestige, the whole package. She turned it down to stay in Connecticut with me. For years, I worried she resented that choice, that she gave up too much. Then one day I asked her about it. You know what she said?" "What?" "She said she didn't choose me over her career. She chose to build a life where both were possible. 3 years later, she started her consulting firm, and she ended up with the career she wanted anyway, just on her own terms. My point is, Maya, this doesn't have to be an either-or situation. You are brilliant and talented. Whether you are in Boston or Seattle, you will do amazing things. The question is, where do you want to build your life and with whom?" After talking to her father for another 30 minutes, Maya felt clearer but not entirely decided. She called Rachel next, who immediately launched into interrogation mode. "Start talking. What happened with Ethan?" Maya told her everything, from the broken pen to the kiss to the impossible decision now weighing on her. Rachel listened without interrupting, which was unusual enough that Maya knew her friend understood the gravity of the situation. "Okay," Rachel said when Maya finished. "I am going to tell you something I probably should have mentioned years ago. Remember the Christmas party 2 years ago? The one where we all went ice skating after? That one. I saw Ethan watching you the entire night. You were laughing with that guy from accounting, the one who kept trying to flirt with you, and Ethan looked like he wanted to throw himself in front of a Zamboni. I asked him about it, and he told me he couldn't pursue anything with you because he was your boss and it wouldn't be fair to you. He said you deserved someone who could love you without any power dynamics or complications. I told him he was an idiot." Maya's heart clenched. "He never said anything. Because he is noble and self-sacrificing and sometimes really stupid about his own happiness. But Maya, I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, and I have never seen you as happy as you are when you are around him. The Seattle job is fantastic, but there will be other jobs. How many chances do you get at real love? So you think I should stay? I think you should do what makes you happy. But I also think you should consider whether running across the country is about chasing your dreams or running away from the scary possibility of letting yourself be vulnerable with someone you really care about." Rachel's words hit uncomfortably close to home. Maya had always been focused on her career, using her ambition as a shield against the messiness of relationships. It was easier to pour herself into work than to risk her heart. The Seattle job was safe in a way that staying for Ethan wasn't. "I need to think," Maya said. "Think fast. You only have until Saturday morning." That night, Maya barely slept. She made a pros and cons list, then threw it away because reducing her life to bullet points felt wrong. She looked up apartments in Seattle, then closed the browser when her chest tightened at the thought of packing up her Boston life. She pulled up photos from the last 3 years, stopping on one from a site visit last fall. Ethan stood beside her in front of a building under construction, both of them wearing hard hats and grinning at the camera. His arm was around her shoulders, and the way he looked at her in the photo made it painfully obvious what Rachel had been talking about. Love was written all over his face. By the time the sun rose on Friday morning, Maya knew what she had to do. The realization had come quietly, not as a flash of insight but as a steady certainty that settled in her chest. She texted Ethan, "Can we talk this morning, before the office opens?" His response came within seconds. "I will be there at 6. I will bring coffee." Maya arrived at the office at 6:10, her heart pounding. The building was quiet, most of the staff not arriving for another 2 hours. She found Ethan in his office, 2 cups of coffee on his desk and exhaustion evident in the circles under his eyes. "You look terrible," she said. "Didn't sleep." Funny how that happens when you finally tell the woman you love how you feel, and then she disappears for 18 hours to think about moving across the country. He handed her a coffee, their fingers brushing. "For the record, worst 18 hours of my life." Maya took the coffee and sat down in the chair across from his desk, the same chair she had occupied for dozens of meetings over the years. Ethan remained standing, leaning against the desk with his arms crossed, trying to look casual but failing miserably. "I called Seattle this morning," Maya said. Ethan's face went carefully blank. "And? I turned down the job." The coffee cup slipped from Ethan's hand, splashing onto the floor. He didn't seem to notice, his eyes locked on her face. "You what?" "I turned it down." I told them I appreciated the offer, but I realized that everything I want is already here in Boston. They were disappointed but understanding. They said to reach out if I ever change my mind. Ethan moved around the desk so fast Maya barely had time to set down her own coffee before he pulled her out of the chair and into his arms. He held her tight, his face buried in her hair, his entire body shaking slightly. "Tell me you didn't just do that for me," he said against her temple. "Tell me you wanted to stay." Maya pulled back enough to look at him, cupping his face in her hands. "I wanted to stay, not just for you, although you are a very big part of it. I wanted to stay because I realized that I have been so focused on chasing what I thought success should look like that I forgot to appreciate what I already have. I have a job I love at a company doing meaningful work. I have friends and family nearby. And I have you if you still want me now that I am not running away." "If I still want you," Ethan laughed, the sound edged with disbelief and joy. "Maya, I have wanted you since day one. I am just trying to process that you are actually here and you are staying, and I didn't just imagine this entire conversation." "It is real," she assured him. "I am real. This is happening." He kissed her then, deep and passionate and full of 3 years of pent-up longing. Maya's hand slid into his hair as she kissed him back just as fervently, trying to convey everything she felt through touch. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably talk about what this means," he said. "For us, for work." "Probably," Maya agreed. "But first, kiss me again." He did, smiling against her lips. They stayed like that for several long minutes, making up for lost time until the sound of the elevator announced the arrival of early bird employees. They separated reluctantly, and Maya moved to the window while Ethan dealt with the spilled coffee, both of them flushed and grinning like idiots. "So," Ethan said once he had cleaned up the mess, "we need to figure out how to handle this professionally." Maya nodded. "I have been thinking about that. I love working here, but you were right that I need room to grow. What if we restructured my role, made me a partner or creative director, something that puts us on more equal footing?" Ethan considered this. "I have actually been thinking about bringing on a partner for a while now. The company has grown beyond what I can manage alone. If you are interested, we could make it official. Cole and Bennett Environmental Design. You would do that." "Maya, you have been essential to this company's success for 3 years. Half our biggest contracts came because of your innovative designs. You deserve recognition for that, and it solves the power dynamic issue. We would be equals, business partners who happen to also be in a relationship." The idea sent a thrill through her. Partnership at a successful firm at only 28 was beyond what she had imagined, and it solved the professional concerns that had always held them back. "Let's do it," she said, "but I want to contribute financially to buying in as a partner. I don't want anyone thinking I got the position because we are together. Deal. We will have the lawyers draw up papers next week." Ethan's smile turned mischievous. "Though I should warn you, going into business with someone you are dating is generally considered a terrible idea. Good thing we have 3 years of successfully working together to fall back on." "Fair point." They spent the next hour discussing logistics, both the professional and personal aspects of their new reality. They agreed to tell the staff about their relationship right away, believing transparency was better than whispers and speculation. They outlined what the partnership structure would look like, with Maya taking over the residential division while Ethan focused on commercial projects. They talked about taking things slow in their personal relationship, despite the intensity of their feelings, wanting to build something lasting. By the time the office filled with their coworkers, Maya felt settled in her decision in a way she hadn't expected. This was right. Boston was right. Ethan was right. Rachel took one look at Maya's face when she arrived and squealed loud enough to turn heads. "You are staying," she said, grabbing Maya's hands. "And you are together." "Oh my God, finally. That obvious. Maya, you are glowing." And Ethan has been smiling at his computer screen for 20 minutes. I thought he might be having a stroke. The official announcement came during the Monday morning staff meeting. Ethan stood at the head of the conference table, Maya beside him, and addressed the gathered employees. "I have two pieces of news to share. First, I am pleased to announce that Maya Bennett is joining me as an equal partner in the firm. She has been instrumental to our success, and this is long overdue. We will be rebranding as Cole and Bennett Environmental Design, effective immediately." Applause broke out, and Maya felt her cheeks heat. Several co-workers called out congratulations, and she saw genuine happiness on most faces. The company culture Ethan had built was collaborative rather than competitive, which made this transition easier. "Second," Ethan continued, his eyes finding Maya's, "Maya and I are in a relationship. We wanted to be transparent about this to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Our personal relationship will not affect the professional standards we maintain here. Anyone who has concerns or questions can come to either of us directly." The announcement was met with knowing looks and a few laughs. Rachel called out, "About time," which earned more chuckles. After the meeting, several co-workers approached Maya privately to express support. A few asked how long they had been together, and Maya explained honestly that it was new despite the feelings being old. Everyone seemed accepting, which relieved a worry she hadn't fully acknowledged. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change. Lawyers drafted partnership agreements. The company underwent rebranding, with a designer creating a new logo that incorporated both surnames. Maya moved into the office next to Ethan's, a space that had been used for storage, but was now renovated into a proper workspace with the same skyline view. Through it all, she and Ethan navigated the early days of their relationship with the same care they brought to their projects. They had dinner at small restaurants where they talked for hours, learning the details of each other's lives they had never discussed at work. Maya discovered that Ethan had a sister living in California whom he called every Sunday, that he was allergic to shellfish, and that he had almost become a marine biologist before switching to architecture. Ethan learned that Maya played piano, that she was terrified of spiders but loved snakes, and that she had a scar on her knee from falling off a bike when she was 7. They took it slow physically, despite the chemistry that had been building for years. Their first real date was at a small Italian restaurant in the North End, where they shared pasta and argued playfully about the merits of different architectural styles. Ethan walked her to her door afterward and kissed her goodnight with a sweetness that made her knees weak. Their second date was a visit to the Museum of Fine Arts, where they spent 3 hours wandering the galleries and making up stories about the people in the paintings. Their third date was a cooking class where they accidentally set off the fire alarm and got banned from making flambé ever again. A month into their relationship, Ethan invited Maya to dinner at his apartment. She had been there before, always as a friend, but this time felt different. He cooked, refusing her help in the kitchen, and she explored his space with new eyes. She noticed the bookshelf held several volumes on sustainable architecture that she had recommended during work conversations. On his desk was a framed photo of the two of them at last year's company retreat, both laughing at something off camera. "You kept that?" she asked when he brought out the salads. Ethan followed her gaze and smiled. "That was the day I realized I was completely in love with you. We had just finished that terrible trust fall exercise, And you made some joke about how if the company was relying on trust falls for team building, we were all doomed. You were wearing that yellow sundress, and your hair was falling out of its ponytail, and I thought you were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. I remember that day. I sprained my ankle during the three-legged race, and you carried me back to the lodge. You also refused medical attention because you didn't want to miss the barbecue. Priorities, she said with a grin. Over dinner, they talked about the future. The partnership was going well, with several new contracts coming in specifically, because clients were excited about their combined vision. Maya had started preliminary designs on a mixed-use development that incorporated green roofs and rainwater harvesting, and Ethan was consulting on a major renovation of a historic downtown building. I have been thinking, Ethan said as they lingered over dessert, about where this is going. Us, I mean. Maya's heart skipped. And? I know it has only been a month. I know we agreed to take things slow. But Maya, I have known you for 3 years. I know how you take your coffee and that you bite your lip when you are concentrating. I know you hate mornings but come alive in the afternoon. I know you are the person I want to share every success and failure with. And I know that I don't want to waste any more time being cautious when I am absolutely certain about how I feel. What are you saying? Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. I am saying I love you. I am saying I want us for the long term. I am not asking you to marry me tonight, he added with a slight laugh. But I am asking if you see a future with me. A real one, not just dating but building a life together. Maya's eyes misted. She had been afraid to think too far ahead, worried that hoping for too much would jinx things. But hearing Ethan voice what she had barely let herself imagine made it real. I see a future with you, she said. I see us growing old together, building this company into something even bigger, having a family if we want one. I see everything, Ethan, and it scares me how much I want it. Why does it scare you? Because 3 months ago, I was planning to move to Seattle. I was ready to start a whole different life. What if I make wrong choices? What if I wake up in 5 years and regret staying? Ethan squeezed her hand. You might. Life doesn't come with guarantees, but Maya, I don't think you stayed just for me. I think you stayed because you realized you already had what you were looking for, and we are going to build something incredible together, both professionally and personally. I promise you that. She believed him. More than that, she believed in them. That night, Maya stayed over for the first time. They made love slowly, tenderly, taking time to explore and learn each other. Afterward, wrapped in Ethan's arms with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, Maya felt more at peace than she had in years. This was where she was meant to be. The summer passed in a blur of happiness. Maya and Ethan fell into an easy rhythm, balancing their work partnership with their personal relationship with surprising grace. They learned to keep professional disagreements at the office and personal time sacred. They took a long weekend trip to Maine, staying at a bed and breakfast on the coast and hiking the rocky beaches. They hosted a dinner party at Ethan's apartment for their friends, and Rachel got drunk enough to tell embarrassing stories about both of them. In August, Maya's parents visited Boston. Her mother, ever perceptive, took one look at Maya and Ethan together and smiled knowingly. Over lunch, her father asked Ethan about his intentions, trying to be serious but unable to hide his approval. Ethan handled it perfectly, respectful but confident, and by the end of the meal, Maya's parents were clearly charmed. He is good for you, her mother said later when they were alone. I have never seen you this happy. I am, Maya admitted. Mom, did you ever regret turning down Chicago? Her mother shook her head. Not for a second. Your father told you I said I chose to build a life where both career and love were possible. But what I didn't mention is that love made the career better. Having someone to celebrate victories with, someone to talk through challenges with, someone who believed in me unconditionally, that made all the difference. You have that with Ethan. Don't take it for granted. I won't. In September, Cole and Bennett Environmental Design won a major contract to design a new community center focused on sustainability and accessibility. It was the kind of project both Maya and Ethan had dreamed of, with a substantial budget and a client willing to take risks on innovative ideas. They threw themselves into the design, spending long hours at the office bouncing ideas off each other, their creative partnership reaching new heights. One evening, working late to finalize the proposal, Maya looked up from her drafting table to find Ethan watching her from his office doorway. "What?" she asked, smiling. "Just appreciating the view," he said. "You have that look you get when you are onto something brilliant. Come here and tell me if this design for the solar panel array makes sense." He crossed to her desk, leaning over her shoulder to study the drawings. His proximity distracted her, as it always did, but she forced herself to focus on his technical assessment. "That is gorgeous," he said after a moment. "But what if we angled this section slightly to maximize afternoon sun exposure?" They spent the next hour refining the design, their collaboration seamless. This was what Maya loved most about their partnership, the way they pushed each other to be better, the way their different strengths complemented each other perfectly. "We make a good team," Ethan said as they finally packed up for the night. "The best," Maya agreed. Walking to the parking garage together, Ethan took her hand. "Stay at my place tonight?" "I have been staying at your place every night this week. I should probably water my plants." "Bring them to my apartment. Move in with me." Maya stopped walking, her eyes wide. "What?" Ethan turned to face her, his expression serious but warm. "Move in with me. You practically live there anyway. Half your clothes are in my closet, your shampoo is in my shower, and I bought that fancy coffee you like for the mornings. Make it official." "Ethan, we have only been together for 5 months. We have known each other for 3 years, and I am not saying this impulsively. I have been thinking about it for weeks. I love waking up next to you. I love coming home to you. The nights you are not there feel wrong. I want you there all the time." Maya's mind raced. Moving in together was a big step, one that would further intertwine their lives. But Ethan was right. She spent most nights at his apartment anyway, and her own place had started to feel like somewhere she kept her stuff rather than home. "Let me think about it," she asked. "Take all the time you need. But Maya, I am serious. I want to build a life with you, and this feels like the next step." Over the next week, Maya considered the proposal from every angle. She talked to Rachel, who enthusiastically supported the idea. She visited her own apartment and realized that most of what made it feel like home were things she could bring with her: the photos, the books, the piano that Ethan had already said he wanted her to move into his spare room. The apartment itself was just a space. She said yes on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Ethan was making pancakes, shirtless and relaxed in his kitchen, and Maya watched him from the doorway, overwhelmed by how much she loved this man and this life they were creating. "Okay," she said. He turned, spatula in hand. "Okay, what?" "Okay, I will move in with you." The spatula hit the floor. Ethan crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around as she laughed. When he set her down, he kissed her soundly. "You are serious?" he asked. "Completely serious. Let's do this." Moving in together was chaotic and wonderful. Ethan helped pack up her apartment, insisting on hiring movers despite Maya's protests that she could handle it. They spent a weekend rearranging his furniture to accommodate her things, arguing playfully about decorating choices and compromising on styles. The piano took up residence in what had been Ethan's home office, which he moved into a corner of the living room. "I like hearing you play while I work anyway," he said when Maya worried about the inconvenience. Living together brought new challenges and joys. They learned each other's domestic habits. Ethan was meticulous about keeping the kitchen clean but left clothes everywhere, while Maya was organized with her belongings but tended to leave coffee mugs scattered throughout the apartment. They worked out a system for chores, figured out how to share bathroom counter space, and established that Friday nights were for date nights, no matter how busy work got. The week before Thanksgiving, Ethan came home with a large box and a mischievous smile. "What is that?" Maya asked from where she was curled on the couch with architectural plans. "Open it and see." Inside the box was a small orange kitten mewing softly. Maya gasped, immediately scooping up the tiny creature. "Ethan, where did this come from?" The shelter near the office. "I was walking by and she was in the window, and I thought about how you mentioned always wanting a cat but your old landlord didn't allow pets. Surprise." Maya felt tears prick her eyes as the kitten nuzzled against her chest. "She is perfect. What should we name her? You decide." "She is your cat." "Our cat," Maya corrected. "We are a family now." They named her Zaha after the famous architect Zaha Hadid. The kitten brought new life to the apartment, and both Maya and Ethan were ridiculously devoted to her. Ethan built an elaborate cat tree by hand, and Maya bought enough toys to fill a basket. They sent photos to their friends and family, acting like proud parents. Thanksgiving arrived, and they hosted both their families at the apartment. Maya's parents drove up from Connecticut, and Ethan's sister flew in from California with her husband. The day was loud and warm, full of laughter and good food. Watching their families interact, seeing how well everyone got along, Maya felt overwhelmingly grateful for how her life had turned out. "Can you believe that 8 months ago I almost moved to Seattle?" she said to Rachel during a quiet moment in the kitchen. "Honestly, no, this feels right, Maya. You and Ethan, the partnership, all of it, you made the right choice." "I really did." As winter settled over Boston, Maya and Ethan's relationship continued to deepen. They had their first real fight in December, a disagreement about a project timeline that escalated because both of them were stressed and tired. Maya ended up sleeping in the guest room, and they both felt miserable. The next morning, they apologized over coffee and talked through the issue properly, learning how to navigate conflict in a healthy way. "We are going to fight sometimes," Ethan said, "but we always talk it out. We always fix it. Deal. Deal." Christmas was magical. They decorated the apartment together, putting up a tree that Zaha immediately tried to climb. Ethan gave Maya a necklace with a small blueprint charm, a miniature rendering of their first collaborative project. Maya gave him a restored antique drafting table she had found at an estate sale, something he had mentioned wanting for years. On Christmas night, sitting by the tree with Zaha purring in her lap, Maya looked at Ethan and felt such intense love it almost hurt. "I love you," she said. "I know I tell you all the time, but I need you to understand how much. You changed my entire life." Ethan pulled her close, the kitten protesting sleepily between them. "You changed mine too. A year ago I was alone, convinced I would never get to tell you how I felt. Now I get to fall asleep next to you every night and wake up to you every morning. I am the luckiest man alive." They kissed, soft and sweet, the city lights twinkling outside the windows. As the new year began, Maya reflected on how different her life looked from a year ago. She had a partnership in a thriving firm, a relationship with the man she loved, and a sense of contentment she had spent years chasing through achievement and ambition. She had learned that sometimes the best choice wasn't the most obviously ambitious one, but the one that aligned with who you truly were and what you truly wanted. On Valentine's Day, Ethan made reservations at the same Italian restaurant where they had their first date. Maya dressed carefully, wearing the green dress Ethan always said brought out her eyes. When she emerged from the bedroom, Ethan stood waiting in a suit, looking devastatingly handsome. "You are staring," she teased. "Can you blame me? You are gorgeous." Dinner was perfect. Good food, easy conversation, stolen kisses between courses. After dessert, Ethan seemed nervous, his leg bouncing under the table. "Everything okay?" Maya asked. "More than okay. Come on, let's take a walk." They bundled up against the February cold and walked through the North End, past historic buildings and quiet streets. Ethan led her to a small park overlooking the harbor, the same spot where they used to come during lunch breaks when they needed to clear their heads. "This is where I first realized I was in love with you," Ethan said. "We were working on the harbor project, and you were so frustrated with the client's demands. We came here, and you ranted for 20 minutes about structural limitations and unrealistic expectations. You were brilliant and passionate, and I knew right then that I wanted to hear you rant about architecture for the rest of my life." Maya laughed, remembering that day. "I called the client an artistic hack with delusions of engineering competence. In your defense, you weren't wrong." Ethan took both her hands, his expression turning serious. "Maya, this past year has been the best of my life. Building the partnership, building our relationship, building a future together. Every day with you is exactly what I want. You make me better at everything I do." He dropped to one knee and Maya's breath caught. "I had this whole speech planned," Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket, "but the only words that matter are these: I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire flanked by small diamonds, the design elegant and unique. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the man kneeling before her, this brilliant, kind, wonderful man who had been part of her life for nearly 4 years now. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, absolutely yes." Ethan stood and slid the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a kiss that tasted like joy and promise. Maya laughed through her tears, kissing him back with everything she had. "I can't believe you proposed in February," she said when they finally broke apart. "It is freezing out here." "I couldn't wait until spring. I have been carrying that ring around for 3 weeks, trying to find the perfect moment. I was going to lose my mind if I waited any longer." They walked back to the apartment hand in hand, calling family and friends to share the news. Rachel screamed so loud they had to hold the phone away from their ears. Maya's parents were thrilled, her mother crying happy tears. Ethan's sister demanded to be maid of honor, even though Maya hadn't decided on the wedding party yet. That night, lying in bed with her fiancé, Maya felt overwhelmingly grateful for the path her life had taken. If someone had told her a year ago that turning down Seattle would lead to partnership, love, and a proposal, she would have laughed. But the universe had given her exactly what she needed, even when she hadn't known what to ask for. Planning the wedding was remarkably stress-free. Maya and Ethan agreed early on that they wanted something intimate rather than a huge production. They chose a small, historic venue in the Boston Harbor, with the ceremony scheduled for September, a year and a half after they had first gotten together. The engagement period flew by in a blur of work and wedding preparations. The firm continued to thrive, with several major projects underway. Maya's design for the community center won an industry award, and Ethan's historic renovation was featured in a prominent architecture magazine. They were building something truly special, both professionally and personally. In June, Maya's parents hosted an engagement party at their Connecticut home. Friends and family gathered in the backyard, and Maya spent the afternoon accepting congratulations and showing off her ring. At one point, she found her father standing alone by the rose garden. "Hey, Dad," she said, linking her arm through his. "Hello, sweetheart, quite the party. It is, thank you for doing this." He squeezed her arm. "I wanted to tell you how proud I am of you. Not just for the engagement, though Ethan is a wonderful man, but for having the courage to choose what was right for you, even when it wasn't the most obvious choice. That takes real self-awareness." "I almost made the wrong choice," Maya admitted. "I was so close to going to Seattle." "But you didn't. You listened to your heart and look where it led you. That is all any parent can hope for their child, that they find their path and have the courage to walk it." Maya hugged him tightly, grateful beyond words for the support and love her parents had always shown her. The wedding day arrived on a perfect September afternoon, the sky clear and the harbor sparkling. Maya got ready with Rachel and Ethan's sister, her mother helping her into the simple but elegant dress she had chosen. The nerves she had expected never materialized. Instead, she felt calm and certain, ready to marry the man who had become her partner in every sense of the word. The ceremony was beautiful and heartfelt. Maya walked down the aisle to find Ethan waiting for her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. They had written their own vows, speaking promises of love, partnership, and mutual support. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ethan kissed her to enthusiastic applause, and Maya felt like her heart might burst from happiness. The reception was relaxed and joyful. They danced, ate, and celebrated with the people they loved most. During her toast, Rachel told the story of watching them dance around their feelings for 3 years, to much laughter. "I knew they were perfect for each other," Rachel said, raising her glass. "And I am so glad they finally figured it out. To Maya and Ethan, may you have a lifetime of happiness and only occasionally terrible architectural puns." When it was time for their first dance as a married couple, Ethan pulled Maya close as a slow song played. "How are you doing, Mrs. Cole?" He murmured against her ear. "Actually, I am keeping Bennett," Maya said. "We agreed, remember, Cole and Bennett environmental design, Cole and Bennett in life." "Right, sorry. How are you doing, Mrs. Bennett, who is also my wife?" she laughed. "I am perfect. Absolutely perfect, you." "Happiest day of my life." "Well, second happiest. The happiest was when you told me you were staying in Boston." "Sentimental fool," she teased. "You're sentimental fool, though." "Forever," she agreed. They spent their honeymoon in Iceland, hiking through otherworldly landscapes and soaking in hot springs under the northern lights. It was a much-needed break from work, and they returned to Boston refreshed and ready to tackle their next chapter. A year after the wedding, Maya discovered she was pregnant. The news came as a surprise. They had talked about children but hadn't actively been trying yet. When she told Ethan, he picked her up and spun her around despite her protests, both of them laughing and crying. "We are having a baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to be parents." Pregnancy was challenging for Maya. Morning sickness plagued her first trimester, and she struggled to balance work demands with fatigue and physical changes. Ethan was incredibly supportive, taking on extra responsibilities at the firm and fussing over her health. They announced the pregnancy to their staff at 3 months, and the office threw an impromptu celebration. "The next generation of Cole and Bennett," one of the junior architects joked. "Future millionaire baby architect." Maya and Ethan hired a project manager to handle some of their workload as her due date approached, ensuring the firm would run smoothly during her maternity leave. They converted the apartment's second bedroom into a nursery, painting it a soft yellow and filling it with carefully chosen furniture. Zaha the cat was deeply suspicious of all the changes, but eventually accepted the new reality. Their daughter was born on a rainy April morning, arriving 2 weeks early and in a hurry. Labor was intense but mercifully short, and when the doctor placed the tiny, squalling infant in Maya's arms, she felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. "She is perfect," Ethan whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his wife and daughter. "You are both perfect." They named her Lily Ann, and she was indeed perfect. Dark hair like her mother, gray eyes like her father, and a temperament that alternated between peaceful and dramatically fussy. Maya took 3 months of maternity leave, spending her days learning to care for this tiny human who had completely rearranged their lives in the best possible way. Ethan was a devoted father from day one. He learned to change diapers, took over midnight feedings so Maya could sleep, and wore the baby carrier around the apartment while working on his laptop. When Maya returned to work part-time, he adjusted his schedule to be home more. Both of them committed to being present parents. On Lily's first birthday, they threw a party at the apartment, surrounded by family and friends. Maya watched Ethan help their daughter smash her cake, both of them covered in frosting, and felt overwhelming gratitude for the life they had built. "Can you believe it has been almost 4 years since I almost moved to Seattle?" she said to Rachel, who was holding her own infant son. "It feels like a lifetime ago," Rachel agreed. "You were so stressed about that decision. It was the best decision I ever made." "Well, one of them, saying yes to Ethan's proposal, might edge it out. You two make it look easy, you know, the whole having it all thing," Maya laughed. "Easy? Rachel, we are constantly exhausted, the laundry is never done, and I survived on coffee and determination for most of Lily's first year. But it is worth it. Every single hard moment is worth it because I get to do this with Ethan." As if summoned, Ethan appeared with Lily in his arms, the toddler babbling happily and reaching for Maya. She took her daughter, settling the little girl on her hip, and Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist. "What are we talking about?" he asked. "How ridiculously happy we are," Maya said. "Accurate," he agreed, kissing her temple. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Oliver James, into the family. The second time around felt easier in some ways. They knew what to expect and had learned from their experiences with Lily. But 2 children brought new challenges, and they navigated the chaos of parenting with patience, humor, and teamwork. Cole and Bennett environmental design continued to flourish. They expanded the office, hired more staff, and took on increasingly ambitious projects. Maya's innovative green designs became the firm's signature, while Ethan's business acumen kept them financially successful. They were interviewed for industry magazines, spoke at conferences, and became recognized experts in sustainable architecture. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned to the restaurant where Ethan had proposed. Maya's mother had agreed to watch the kids overnight, giving them a rare evening alone. 5 years, Maya said over dessert. "Can you believe it? Best 5 years of my life," Ethan said. "Though I will admit, I didn't expect quite this much sleep deprivation." She laughed. "Oliver is getting better about sleeping through the night, only wakes up twice now instead of 5 times. Progress. In another year we might feel human again." They talked about the firm, the kids, their hopes for the future. Maya wanted to write a book about sustainable residential design. Ethan was considering expanding into green commercial development. They both wanted to travel more once the kids were older, to show them the world and inspire the next generation of environmentally conscious thinkers. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you had gone to Seattle?" Ethan asked. Maya considered the question seriously. "Sometimes." I think I would have been successful there too, but I don't think I would have been as happy. Everything I want is here, you, the kids, the firm we built together. Seattle could have given me a career, but Boston gave me a life. No regrets, not a single one. You. My only regret is that I didn't tell you how I felt sooner. We could have had even more time together. We have the rest of our lives, Maya reminded him. That is plenty of time. Ethan raised his wine glass. To the rest of our lives, then. May they be filled with love, laughter, and only occasionally sleepless nights. Maya clinked her glass against his. I will drink to that. As they walked home through the city streets, hand in hand, Maya thought about the young woman she had been 4 years ago, standing in Ethan's office with a job offer from Seattle. That woman had been talented and ambitious, but afraid to risk her heart. She had been ready to run across the country rather than face the possibility of rejection. How different her life might have looked if she had made that choice. She would have missed Ethan's proposal, their wedding, the birth of their children. She would have built a successful career, but come home to an empty apartment. She would have achieved her professional goals but lost out on the love that made every other achievement sweeter. Sometimes the bravest choice wasn't the one that looked most impressive on paper. Sometimes it was choosing to stay, to be vulnerable, to build something with another person that was greater than what either could create alone. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked as they reached their building. How lucky I am, Maya said simply. How lucky we are. Inside their apartment, they paid the babysitter and checked on their sleeping children. Lily was sprawled across her bed, clutching her favorite stuffed giraffe. Oliver was curled in his crib, his tiny fist pressed against his cheek. Zaha the cat was asleep at the foot of Lily's bed, standing guard over her favorite small human. In their own bedroom, Maya and Ethan got ready for bed with the comfortable routine of long married couples. As they settled under the covers, Ethan pulled her close and she rested her head on his chest. I love you, he murmured into her hair. I love you too, always. And as she drifted off to sleep, warm and safe in her husband's arms, Maya Bennett knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice all those years ago. She hadn't chosen between career and love. She had chosen to build a life where both were possible, where professional success and personal happiness weren't competing priorities but complementary aspects of a rich, full existence. She had stayed in Boston, and in doing so, she had found everything she never knew she needed. A partnership that challenged and inspired her, a love that sustained and fulfilled her, a family that brought joy and purpose to every day. She had found her home, not just in a city but in the life she had built with Ethan. Some people spend their entire lives searching for what Maya had found by staying put. And as she fell asleep, she sent a silent thank you to her younger self for having the courage to choose love over fear, partnership over independence, and the messy, beautiful reality of building a life with someone over the safe distance of pursuing dreams alone. The morning sun would bring new challenges, meetings to attend, diapers to change, projects to complete. But it would also bring Ethan's smile over breakfast, Lily's sticky kisses, Oliver's delighted giggles, and the satisfaction of working on something meaningful alongside her partner in every sense. Years later, when Lily was old enough to understand, she asked her mother how she and Daddy had fallen in love. Maya smiled and told her daughter the story of a job offer, a confession, and a choice that changed everything. I almost moved away, Maya explained. But then your father told me he loved me, and I realized that everything I wanted was already right here. What did you say? Lily asked, eyes wide with the drama of it all. I said I couldn't let him go. And then I stayed, and we built this beautiful life together. We got married, started our company and had you and your brother. Best decision I ever made." "Better than being an architect?" Lily asked, impressed. Her mother's career fascinated her, and she loved visiting the office to see the models and drawings. "Being an architect is wonderful," Maya said, "but being your mom and being married to your dad, that is everything. The work is important, but the people you love are what make life meaningful." Lily seemed to accept this wisdom, running off to play with her brother. Ethan appeared in the doorway, having overheard the conversation. "Teaching our daughter about the power of staying," he teased. "Teaching her that sometimes the best adventures happen when you choose to build something where you are rather than chasing what you think you should want." Wise words from a wise woman. He pulled her into his arms. "Have I mentioned lately how glad I am that you stayed?" "Once or twice," Maya said with a smile, "but feel free to mention it again." "I am glad you stayed. Every single day I am grateful that you chose this life, chose me, chose us." "Always," Maya promised. "I will always choose us." And she meant it. Through all the years that followed, through promotions and challenges and the beautiful chaos of raising a family while running a business, Maya never once regretted her decision. She had found what so many people spend lifetimes searching for: a love that sustained her, work that fulfilled her, and a family that gave her purpose. Seattle had offered her a dream job, but Boston and Ethan had offered her a dream life. And in the end, that made all the difference.